Hey, what's up guys? I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. Today's video will be the top 3 gaming TVs of 2022.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Brian. This is Tech Therapy. The reason I'm doing the top 3 gaming TVs of 2022 is many of you are asking for these recommendations as you're making your very first 4K or 8K TV purchase, or you are upgrading from an older model. With Black Friday around the corner, these are the times where the prices are the most reasonable, and it's actually the time that many of you have been waiting for. Why am I leaving it to only 3 gaming TVs? Why am I doing gaming TVs even separately? Well, gaming went from being a very niche part of TV technology for many, many years. It wasn't considered nearly as important. Now, I do consider it to be one of the most important aspects of any new TV coming out. Now, other than the top 3 TVs in this list, the reason there are only 3, as these are the most complete, versatile, well-rounded for both PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. So console and PC, these are the only 3 that really do everything and do everything well, where picture quality and value are the key. That's why there are only 3. They are not missing any big aspects or anything that you have to compromise. These are the no compromise panels, and there are only 3. We will do runner-ups at the end or while I bring up each number. But again, gaming has become more important than ever. These top 3 are also amazing for everything else, where back in the day, if you had a monitor that was as good as these 3 TVs, you would definitely compromise picture quality for movies, streamings, black level, etc. Not the case with these 3. These are also perhaps the top 3 TVs this year all around. Starting with number 3, we have the Samsung QN90B. It is the most versatile mini LED TV on the market for gaming. It is the step down, not the flagship. That would be the QN95B. I'll explain why that's not the one I recommend for this specific pick. The QN90B is the most versatile, with sizes ranging from 43, 50, 55, 65, 75, and 85. It's also an excellent value right now for what it provides. In 43 and 50, you also have native 144 hertz gaming. You can also force that on the other sizes. You also have ultra widescreen on these models as well. It is one of the brightest LEDs out there. Gorgeous, wider color gamut, being a quantum dot. It is the most colorful and bright LED out there. Now for gaming, the optimizers you see here on my C1, I'll also show you the one on the QN90B. To me, this was something that is now a must. I thought it was kind of a added thing that wasn't a big deal. It really is something that I utilize every day on all of these panels. So it is something that you'll have to have a game bar of some kind to be on this list, which gives you all of the HDR, VRR, G-Sync, FreeSync, all of the features on the game bar, as well as FPS, which is actually more important in PC, and it is very accurate on the Samsung. That is my pick for number 3. The QN90B is, again, one of the flagships that started out this year as one of the hottest TVs. It was supplanted by the QN95B, which has the 8K processor and the One Connect box. However, I would still recommend the QN90B in its place. It is a far better value, has more versatility of size. And it is exactly the same picture quality from what I can tell, even though the QN95B has the 8K processor, same processor as the 900B. I do feel the QN90B and the QN95B are virtually the same panel. Very low input lag, and throughout this video I will have the input lag and the prices that you'll see throughout the video. I'll label those throughout the countdown. Q90B is my favorite LED, mini LED by far this year. One drawback that Samsung does have that you can check in this other video where I put the Q900B versus the LG Z2 is in order to avoid blooming as other LEDs have, they do tend to flatten out and gray out the image. It does end up losing shadow detail. I find that to be a distraction in very dark environments. However, by itself, it's not as noticeable versus a comparison. The wider color gamut, the more colors are evident versus any other non-quantum dot LED or OLED on the market. So for number 3, the Samsung QN90B. Number 2 is the Samsung S95B QD OLED. Comes in 2 sizes, 55 and 65. This took the entire TV world by storm. It will be very controversial that it is at number 2 because easily when I saw this panel for the very first time, it is one of the best TVs, if not the best TV I have ever seen in my life. It absolutely blew me away. Also blew me away when I did my game testing on it. Absolutely gorgeous, the brightest OLED ever made, most colorful OLED ever made. And the concept, think about it. It's everything you love or hate about Samsung: saturation, wider color gamut, very colorful, bright, punchy, but in OLED. It also released at a very value-based price. It wasn't super expensive. It does not have a heatsink. It has all of the gaming features that the Samsung QN90B has. Again, 1440p, 120. Failed to mention that on the Samsung. Before I go forward, every TV on this list must do 1440p, 60 or 120. The QN90B has 144 hertz at 43 and 50. You can force it on both of these Samsung. It is also available on the S95B. The Xbox Series X and the PS5 both have that, and obviously with PC you have everything that you want. The S95B, as I mentioned, was one of the best panels I have ever seen. Unbelievably colorful, screen uniformity off the charts, HGIG amazing. You also have Samsung's Motion Plus, which is also on the QN90B, which you can use. Amazing gaming optimizer, awesome TV all around. Why did it drop on this list? 2 reasons. One, it only comes in 2 sizes, 55 and 65, where the QN90B has a large array of sizes from 43 to 85. The QN95B has also been hampered and altered with a million updates, which have changed its picture quality. Now, this will be very controversial for many of you. This is something many of you don't agree with. I have seen it change from the first day that I saw it unboxed to when I reviewed it to when I spent time with it. It went from being something I had never seen before to amazing to looking a bit more like other OLEDs, except in other instances, to looking just like any other OLED, which is still amazing. However, only look different in certain quality or certain content, be it brighter or more colorful, dependent on the content. Meaning content dependent versus being the raw monster that it was when it was unboxed and saw for the very first time. Now, all that said, the S95B is still absolutely amazing and you will be very happy with it. It's just that it has changed a lot from when I first saw the panel unleashed. It is very different, and also the wider color gamut tends to change a bit in game mode, which defeats the purpose of having a quantum dot OLED. Is still one of the brightest, though not as bright upon release. And as I mentioned before, seeing it for the first time, that would have been my king of TVs versus everything. That would have included the LG Z2. It was that impressive. Still very impressive, but it does bring up a reason that Samsung is number 2 and number 3 on this list. It's trust. Cannot trust them with their firmware updates changing picture quality so drastically. Now, when the S95B was initially changed, it was to make it more accurate. I do not like them doing that. You can have these panels calibrated or make them more accurate yourself. it should be as it was. I do feel it was changed for the safety of the panel, as the S95B does not have a heatsink. All that said, Quantum Dot OLED's first jump, which has been introduced by Samsung, is still absolutely mind-blowing and would be number one on all lists, not just gaming. But it's the trust factor. It is also limited to only 2 sizes. And though it isn't a big deal, it is missing Dolby Vision gaming, which may be a bigger deal down the road. Doesn't have it, but it is the number 2 pick, and absolutely amazing. Just really hard to trust Samsung with their firmware updates. My thoughts are, if you do purchase the QN90B or the Samsung S95B, would be to take it offline the minute you purchase it. So quickly before we do number 1, I wanted to give an honorable mention, or the panel that I do recommend to take the place of number 3, which would be the QN90B. I don't do numbered lists often. I am a discussion-based channel. I would recommend, if you do want to save some money, the panel that has dropped quite a bit in price is the Samsung QN85B. It is an IPS panel, but it is gorgeous. It is the panel that does catch your eye when you walk into store. It is very saturated, very poppy. It doesn't have quite the contrast ratio of the QN90B, but for the rest of it, the functionality isn't nearly the same options. I love that TV. That would be one I would recommend as a runner-up for number 3. Now, runner-up for number 2 doesn't exist, as the Samsung S95B is the best value QD OLED. So for number 2, that S95 does stand alone. For number 1 is the LG C2. It is my favorite all-around TV this year overall in terms of its functionality, feature set, and price. It offers sizes from 42, 48, 55, 65, 77, and 83. It is an improvement over the CX and C1, albeit incremental. It still is an improvement. Love the display, love the new and improved game optimizer, which is closer to Samsung's optimizer in terms of functionality. Unlike the optimizer on the C1, which you see behind me, you can actually go right to the All Settings tab while you're in the menu. It is improved. I do feel it is a tad brighter. The processing is a bit cleaner than the C1, which you see behind me. It is an incremental upgrade. It is an excellent value. While saying that, I do feel when I compared them, I did like the C2 a lot more than the C1. Again, a little bit cleaner, a little bit sharper, a little bit of a jump, not a monster jump, but being better than what's come before it is also part of its strength. LG is tried and true. They've been doing OLEDs forever. They have been the first gaming OLED to be, again, reliable with the inclusion of NVIDIA G-Sync. They just have everything, and the most important part for me is everything works. All the panels on this list have full bandwidth HDMI 1 through 4. There is no compromise, as I mentioned. Again, not good at doing lists. Where the C2 does pass the S95B for me is simple reliability. Just something that there are more choices. One, in sizes. Obviously, the S95 is only 55 and 65, doesn't have Dolby Vision, while the C2 comes in many more sizes. But the reliability of LG and their updates, they do not change the picture quality unless something is wrong, which you saw with the CX with floating backs. We did not have that with the C1. So LG's reliability for full bandwidth HDMIs, HGIG, everything just works well. Its eARC works well as well, and just really like LG and what they've done in the last number of years. Again, versus the S95B, it is many more sizes, many more options, and reliability is key. Not just reliability in terms of their quality control, but the fact that they will not cripple their own panel with their updates or change the image quality at all. Works well for PS5, PC, and Xbox. But again, all 3 panels on this list are very versatile and amazing for gaming, and the picture quality on them is unbelievable. Now, why didn't I choose the G2? The G2 is higher end. It is brighter, does have a heatsink, but much like the QN95B, not quite. The QN95B doesn't look much different, if any different than the QN90B, different processor. The G2 does look a tad different, but I do find that to be incremental. It is brighter in spots, but I've had a hard time spotting that. I also prefer the design of the C2 being a traditional OLED, very thin. It does feel quality. It's a little lighter or too light and flimsy feeling at the smaller sizes. At 77 and 83, it is just like the C1. Great build quality, but it has the classic thin bezel, where the G2, being the Gallery series, goes flush against the wall, looks amazing when hung. The bezel is silver. It is only an inch from top to bottom, but I don't love that design in terms of it not looking like an OLED. I do prefer the C series design more than the G series or Gallery series. Now, runner-up for the C2, it's not the G2. Obviously, the G2, again, higher end, something that many of you will purchase to have the highest end. But to me, the C2 is a better value. This list does have value brought into it. The runner-up would be the B2, which doesn't have quite the HDR impact, not the same processor, but does still look fantastic. The challenge with the B2 and the C2 is the pricing with the B series sometimes bumps into last year's C series or even its own C series of the same year. The pricing can be very erratic, but the B2 is also an excellent pick. Looks fantastic. Now, this group, these three, again, are the best of the best. And quickly before I jump to that, for a runner-up on number one would also be last year's C1. They are still available, where for number three, the QN90A isn't quite as available and is also an excellent pick if you can find it. But the C1, B2 would be the runner-ups for number one. Now, before I sign off, the reason I want to do this video again is gaming has become a large part of what many of you do. There were compromises back in the day of IPS monitors, very quick, very fast, very small, terrible blacks. That stuff is history, doesn't matter anymore, as these displays have excellent box, excellent contrast ratio, low latency, low input lag, functionality, HDMI 2.1, 144 hertz, 120 hertz at 4K, 140 hertz, 4 hertz is only some of them. But being somebody who games on PC, I have a 3090 Ti, 4K 120 is something I use constantly, as well as G-Sync. To have G-Sync, FreeSync, and all that functionality makes a world of difference. Why didn't I bring up other brands? Other brands with only two HDMI 2.1s cannot be on this list. You have to have more for that many more. I utilize every single one of my HDMIs, and a splitter is not something that I want to do. Other brands, half frame rate resolution, waiting for a patch to fix, that is not something I am interested in. All three of these panels are fully fledged. There is no updates coming. And I would say to many of you, do not wait for updates for features. Buy what it is right now. The S95B, though it has a rocky road with its updates, it's still absolutely gorgeous. As far as features, if you're waiting for 4K 120, or some of the panels have done half resolution when they've gone to 4K 120, I do not want to hear that's coming in an update. Many of you should have learned what happened with the Sony 900H a few years ago. I would not want that for anyone to have a wait for updates. All three panels are fully fledged, amazing for PS5, PS4 Pro, and PS5 to have 1440p now and Sony not have it on their displays is something I don't quite understand. So a lot of you like 1440p, you like the higher frame rate, you like that choice. HDMI 2.1 and gaming on modern TVs, you can game on just about all of them. The majority of them are HDMI 2.1. But HDMI 2.1 is such a necessity, as many of these game developers are using the 120 mode to give you a 4K 40 FPS mode that you would not be able to have on games like God of War that have 4 presets, 4 different choices, where if you don't have HDMI 2.1, and even VRR in some cases, not God of War, but in some cases, VRR is also needed. You would have 4 presets, typically quality, ray tracing, but that 4K 40 FPS is a nice, even, good looking but fast. And if you're a PC gamer, you can do 4K 120. You want to have all the bells and whistles you can possibly have. Those are my top 3. QN90B Mini LED, QN85 would be the runner-up. S95B at number 2 stands absolutely by itself as a cutie. OLED, absolutely gorgeous and amazing value at that price. Samsung, I forgot to mention this, do not love Samsung's Tizen. Many of you actually like it. Something else I should have brought up, but otherwise Samsung's got more features than you can imagine. And for number 1, strictly for just reliability and you get what you get, is the LG C2. LG G2 is obviously the higher end, brighter model, but I still recommend the C2 for many of you for sizes, reliability, the design, and the LG B2 as a runner-up, or last year's C1. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think in the comments. Hope all is well. Love you guys.